Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Stay with me, because nothing in this story unfolds the way you'd expect. It all reset at exactly 3:17 a.m., not because I couldn't sleep, but because her ringtone lit up twice on a phone she swore was on silent. Not mine. His. She was in bed. His phone was under the bed. Our bed. And she didn't even flinch when I found it. That's how numb she'd gotten. That's how far gone we were. No shouting, no hiding. Just silence. She looked at me, blinked once, and rolled back over. And that's when I realized I didn't live with my wife anymore. I lived with someone who used to be her. The next morning, she handed me coffee like nothing happened. I stared at her knuckles, the ones I used to kiss when she was nervous. They were steady now, steady enough to slice me open without using a single word. And that's when she said it. "You're just a co-parent, not my real match." She dropped it like a receipt into a trash bin. Cold, casual, no warning, no apology. So I became exactly what she said I was. Detached, silent, absent, not cruel, just empty, like a TV on mute. She didn't notice at first. She still had her secrets, her work events, her password changes. But the longer I stayed quiet, the more she cracked. First, she asked if I was okay. Then she asked why I didn't ask her if she was okay. Eventually, she stood in the doorway at 1:09 a.m., whispering my name while I pretended to sleep. But I didn't move. I'd done enough moving for both of us over the last 7 years. What she didn't know yet, what she couldn't know, was that I'd been recording every lie since the first one. The late-night messages, the second Uber account, the Tina from HR that didn't exist. And I wasn't planning revenge. No, I was planning freedom. Because when someone tells you exactly what you are to them, believe them, and then vanish before they realize you were the only real thing they had. I wish I could tell you she broke down, that she cried when I stopped texting back, that she stayed up waiting for me the first night I didn't come home. But she didn't. She didn't shed a tear. She just changed the Wi-Fi password. Subtle, petty, expected. It was her way of keeping control, like a toddler flipping over a board game they're losing. And I played my part. I didn't ask for the new password. I just tethered to my phone and kept scrolling through months of screenshots. Her calendar entries, the late-night photos with cropped shadows, the Uber receipts from streets we've never driven down. I didn't need a private investigator. I needed distance. The funny part? She started trying again, but only when it was already too late. She bought my favorite snacks, put on the music she once called emo garbage. She even started wearing her hair down the way I used to like it. And every time she did, I caught a flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not regret, but confusion. Like she couldn't understand why the puppet had stopped dancing. She finally confronted me one Sunday morning. Nolan had gone to play soccer. I was washing dishes like always. She leaned against the fridge and said, "You're acting different. Are you seeing someone?" I almost laughed, as if emotional survival was cheating, as if noticing my own worth after being tossed aside made me unfaithful. I dried my hands slowly, turned to her, and asked, would it matter if I was? Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't have an answer. And that silence? That was the first time I saw her panic. But I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wasn't trying to do anything. I had finally, truly stopped trying at all. And that scared her more than anything else ever had. That week, she showed up at Nolan's school pickup. Usually, that was my job. She smiled like nothing was wrong, even waved at me like we were still some sitcom couple. But then I saw her pull out her phone, take a picture of me with Nolan, and quickly text it to someone. I couldn't help it. I looked. Her screen said, "He's starting to slip. I think he knows." That's when I realized. She still didn't understand. I wasn't slipping. I was done. The more I pulled away, the more she performed. Like clockwork, her gestures became louder, but emptier. She made breakfast she never used to bother with. Complimented my cologne after years of barely noticing. One night, she even sat beside me on the couch and rested her head on my shoulder like she used to. I didn't move. I didn't lean in or lean away. I just sat there, empty, letting her remember what real silence felt like, the kind you can't fix with candles or small talk. But it was what I found in the glove compartment that changed everything. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for my sunglasses. Instead, I found a folded napkin from the Bower, a restaurant she'd never mentioned but apparently visited often. 2 initials were scribbled at the bottom. L+T. The L was hers. The T. Well, he had a name now. I sat in the driver's seat with the napkin in my hand, staring at the ink like it was a medical report confirming something terminal. But I didn't confront her, not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go, how much she'd fake before she realized I wasn't pretending anymore. I was genuinely gone. That Friday, I left work early and parked near the Bower. I told myself I was just going to sit there. Observe. Not spy, not stalk, just see. At exactly 6:42 p.m., she walked out, laughing. Her hand was resting on a man's chest, someone taller, younger, with one of those designer jackets that screams midlife crisis money. And then they kissed. Not a hesitant kiss, not a mistake. A familiar kiss. A practiced one. That night, she came home late and told me the meeting ran over. She even brought takeout from a place across town to sell the story. I nodded, said thanks, ate in silence, and she watched me the whole time like she was waiting for me to snap, to accuse her, to become the angry husband she could blame for everything falling apart. But I never gave her that gift. Instead, I went upstairs, packed a single duffel bag, and quietly placed it under the bed, next to the box where I'd been storing the physical proof of everything. The receipts, the screenshots, the napkin. I wasn't preparing to leave. I was preparing for the day I stopped protecting her image and started protecting myself. She still didn't get it. I wasn't slipping. I was waking up. There was this moment, just a single second, when I caught her staring at me like I was a ghost in our kitchen. Her fork hovered midair, her lips slightly parted, and I knew, she was trying to remember who I used to be. The man who used to smile when she walked into a room. The man who once lit up when she laughed. But now, she looked at me like I was hollow. And maybe I was. She finally said it during breakfast. "You don't talk to me anymore, Curtis. You don't even fight." Her voice cracked just slightly, like she didn't expect the silence to be this loud. I chewed slowly, swallowed, then replied, "What's there left to fight for?" I didn't say it with venom. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just meant it. You can't argue over something that's already burned down to ashes. You just sift through the rubble and decide what's worth keeping. She blinked fast, then stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. I didn't flinch. She stormed into the hallway, probably hoping I'd follow her, grab her wrist, demand answers. But I didn't move. I sat there, listening to her rummaging through drawers like chaos would make me care again. But what came next I didn't expect. Later that afternoon, she texted me from the other room. "Can we talk in private? Not around Nolan." I walked into our bedroom, and she was sitting on the edge of the bed, wringing her hands. She looked younger in that moment, not physically, but emotionally, like a kid about to admit they broke something valuable. "I made a mistake," she began. "I thought I wanted more. I thought you'd always be here waiting while I figured myself out. But you disappeared." And I realized, she stopped herself, trying to force the next words. I stayed quiet. That silence. It was power. Not revenge, not punishment, just reality. Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, they felt real. But it was too late for that. Because now I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was indifferent. Numb. Detached in a way I never thought I could be toward the woman I once believed I'd grow old with. She had gambled on me staying soft forever. But even the softest hearts have limits. The apology didn't land. Not because it came too late, though it did, but because it came without consequences. She wanted to reset the board, as if the lies, the emotional abandonment, the betrayal weren't carved into every corner of our lives. But the problem with trying to rewind a marriage is that real hurt doesn't obey a script. It doesn't fade on command. I went along with it at first, not because I forgave her, but because I was curious. I wanted to see what remorse looked like on her face. I watched her pretend to rediscover me. The way she touched my arm gently in the hallway, the way she asked if I wanted to go for a walk, like old times. It was theater, and I had front row seats. But something didn't add up. She stopped seeing tea, or at least stopped mentioning work dinners. But she became paranoid, too careful. Her phone, once casually left on counters and couches, was now glued to her body like an extension of her spine. She changed her lock screen to a picture of Nolan, but that wasn't her pattern. She was trying to cover something. One evening, while she was putting Nolan to bed, her phone buzzed. Not once. For times. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But when the screen lit up and I saw the name, Trent, contractor, my stomach dropped. We hadn't done any housework in over a year. And I knew for a fact that she wasn't building a deck behind my back. I clicked the message. You ghosted me. L. Thought we agreed we'd meet at least once before you decide anything. My throat tightened. Not from jealousy. From exhaustion. From the weight of the lie sitting between us like a boulder. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't forward it to myself. I didn't even bring it up. Instead, I walked out into the backyard and sat on the cold steps in the dark, listening to the wind push dead leaves across the patio like whispers. She forgot something critical. I wasn't the same man anymore. I wasn't begging for love or answers. I was gathering quiet truths. Preparing. She'd mistaken my silence for forgiveness. But I was just watching her sink in her own performance. And she still hadn't realized the final act was already underway. I think there's a moment in every dying relationship when one person finally stops searching for reasons and starts noticing patterns. Mine came while organizing our hallway closet. She had asked me to pull out the winter coats. Said Nolan needed his fleece jacket. But as I shifted the plastic tubs and boxes, I noticed something shoved deep into the corner. A black tote bag I didn't recognize. It wasn't hidden well. Almost like she wanted it to be found eventually, just not yet. Inside was a tangled mess of receipts, an unused burner phone, and a perfume she never wore around me. The kicker? A small velvet jewelry box. Empty. But the label inside said, Wexford's Fine Jewelers. I sat down right there on the floor, in a pile of scarves and forgotten boots, and just stared at that box. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat still, listening to the low hum of the heater kicking on, the only warmth left in the house. I knew Trent wasn't just some fleeting mistake anymore. He was part of her plan. I just didn't know if she'd chosen him over me yet, or if she was still weighing her options. When she got home, she saw the coats laid out on the couch and smiled like everything was normal. I couldn't fake it anymore. I asked her plainly, "Do you still talk to him?" No anger in my voice, just tiredness. She froze, then gave me the kind of lie that's worse than the truth, the kind that's been rehearsed. "No, Curtis. I told you I ended it. You have to believe me." Believe her? Believe the woman who kept a burner phone next to Nolan's snow boots? I didn't answer. I just nodded and walked upstairs. And that's when I realized I'd crossed a line, not with her, but with myself. I no longer felt panic at the idea of losing her. I felt something colder. Relief. Later that night, she knocked softly on our bedroom door. Her voice wavered as she whispered, "Are we okay?" I wanted to tell her the truth. That we hadn't been okay in years. That I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her witness. But instead, I said nothing. Let her sit in the silence she'd built around us brick by brick. The walls she thought protected her, they were a cage now. And she locked herself in. She just didn't know the door behind her had already closed. 3 days passed in strained politeness. We exchanged words only when necessary, like two coworkers trapped on a long project they both regretted starting. Then came Friday. She made dinner, actual dinner. Salmon, roasted vegetables, cloth napkins. A bottle of wine we'd been saving for our anniversary, which had quietly passed 2 weeks ago without so much as a happy whatever. She lit candles. She wore mascara. She wore my favorite dress. And the entire time, I couldn't shake the question echoing in my head. Who is this for? We sat across from each other, clinking glasses like some hollow reenactment of a life we no longer lived. She talked about Nolan's school project, how he wanted to build a volcano. I nodded, chewed slowly, pretended not to notice how her hands trembled when she poured the wine. Halfway through the meal, her phone buzzed. She reached for it instinctively, then stopped herself, turned it face down. Too slow. I'd already seen the name light up. Trent, don't answer. She noticed my glance. Her face didn't flush. It dropped. All the warmth drained out of her eyes like someone blew out the last candle in the room. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She just whispered. I didn't know how to stop it. And that broke me in a way her affair never could. Because it meant she had tried to keep him around even as she was pretending to rebuild what she'd burned. I stood up, quietly, pushed my plate away, not in anger, just sadness. I told her I'd be sleeping in the guest room that night, not as a statement, not to hurt her. I just couldn't lie in a bed where someone else had already replaced me. That night, I lay staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of her crying down the hall. And for once, I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel guilt. I felt something that almost scared me in its finality. Peace. Not because I had won. There were no winners here. but because I was finally ready to stop trying to be someone worth choosing by a woman who never really made up her mind. The only decision left to make was mine. The next morning, I didn't pack in a storm. I didn't slam doors or throw accusations. I made coffee, folded laundry, wrote a note for Nolan telling him I'd be nearby if he needed me. Then I picked up the duffel bag I'd hidden weeks ago, the one with just enough to start over, and walked out the front door without saying goodbye. She followed me halfway down the driveway, barefoot, her voice caught somewhere between a plea and disbelief. "So that's it?" she asked. "After everything?" I turned to her, calm in a way I hadn't been in months. "No," I said. "This is the beginning." And I meant it. I didn't leave to punish her. I didn't vanish to get a reaction. I left because I finally understood the difference between surviving a relationship and living a life. I had spent years trying to be enough for someone who never figured out what she wanted. But I knew what I wanted now: peace, stability, and to be seen not just as a co-parent, but as a whole human being. I got a small apartment a few blocks from Nolan's school. It's quiet, clean, and mine. Every other weekend, we build Lego castles and eat cereal for dinner. He asked once if Mommy was mad at me. I told him, "No, buddy. We're just learning how to be better people, even if it means doing it apart." As for her, she called. She texted. She even emailed me a photo of the empty jewelry box I'd found in the closet with a message that said, "It wasn't for him. I was going to try again, with you." But she had waited too long. I wasn't angry. I just didn't reply. Some endings don't need applause. Just a soft curtain close. I still carry pieces of that version of me. The one who waited, who begged, who believed. But I no longer wear him like skin. I'm lighter now. Not healed completely, but finally walking in the right direction. Thanks for listening. If something in this story struck a chord with you, drop a comment below, especially if you've ever had to walk away not out of spite, but out of self-respect. I'd love to hear how you found your peace. This has been Reddit Confessions. If you haven't yet, subscribe for more stories like this one. And remember, sometimes the quietest goodbyes are the ones that set us free.